which is not deadly, in a paper in 2010, and gave them little bit of doses, bigger doses, and the people who had bigger doses got more sick. So we have done this experiment in human beings with another virus. Then with hamsters, we gave them SARS-CoV-2, the world gave them SARS-CoV-2, the particular virus that causes COVID, and a little bit of virus when they actually wore a mask or they simulated masking. The hamsters either didn't get sick, or if they did get sick, they got very mild infections. So this has been shown in animal models with this virus. And then what we have to do epidemiologically is look at places like cruise ships or what's going on in this country, where before we knew about masking in a cruise ship, the Diamond Princess.
All right, so new evidence that wearing masks protect not just other people around you, but also the wearer as well, because if you do get infected, the viral load would be lower. All right, I want to shift gears now because we have our guest that we have been trying to connect with. You've probably seen the growing protests in Portland, Oregon, where for 2 months, people have been demonstrating in the streets in front of the federal courthouse, calling for social justice after the death of George Floyd. But things are escalating there. The Trump administration has sent in federal troops, something he's threatening to do in Oakland and other big cities. Now, this week, you might have seen thousands of women wearing yellow, the so-called wall of moms, forming a wall, literally, to separate protesters from those federal troops. There's been pushing, there's been shoving, use of baton and tear gas. And then there was this. That man in the Navy hoodie, wearing the backpack, being beaten, is Navy veteran Chris David. And Chris joins us today to share what really happened out there in the streets. Chris, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Chris, that was difficult to watch. No doubt even more difficult to endure. How are you doing? Did they break anything?
I'm doing pretty good. Oh, yeah, they broke my hand. And bruised me up a bit, but otherwise I'm fine.
You went to the hospital, I assume, got checked out?
Yeah, I'm going to have surgery on my hand.
Can I see the hand? Which hand was it?
Sure, my right hand, right here. Yeah, they broke the bone here, and then they shattered my ring finger.
Chris, I'm sorry that happened to you, but tell our viewers a little bit about yourself. You've been described as a disabled Navy veteran, but how old are you?
I'm 53 years old.
And you're from Portland?
Yes, I am.
All right. What do you do now?
Well, I'm a laboratory scientist at the VA hospital.
Okay. So walk us through that night. Why did you go down there to the heart of the protest?
Well, I've been seeing a lot of videos recently of men in camis with no insignia abducting citizens off the streets of Portland and throwing them into vans and taking them who knows where. And that's very disturbing to me for a bunch of reasons. But the biggest one being is if the federal government can dress that way and do that kind of thing, anybody can. It's a very slippery slope. And so because I saw what I believe to be very unconstitutional behavior down at the protests, the protests are about Black Lives Matter. And I think we need to remember that because that's being eclipsed by this war that's developed on the streets of Portland. And when I say streets of Portland, it's not a very big area of Portland. The media is making it look like the entire city is engulfed in flames. It's not. It's just a few block area around the federal courthouse.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you decided to go down there to the courthouse, right? People had been confronting the federal agents. Some people wanted to just make a point. Other people doing a little graffitiing, things like that. But you went down there. Why did you choose to wear that Navy hoodie that we saw in the video?
Well, I wanted to go down there and ask the officers, the federal officers, why they were violating their oath to the Constitution. I actually just wanted to ask them a question. So I decided to go down there and put on all my Navy gear as a way of trying to identify myself as a veteran. And I was hoping that on the other side, there would be veterans as well. And maybe it would give them pause long enough that we could actually have a conversation. But that was a complete mistake. They didn't care. All
right, so you thought maybe that would be not a license, so to speak, but they would look at that and maybe give you the time of the day to hear you out and have the conversation with you. All right, so what did you say to them before what happened, that we all saw on video, in which one officer, I think, started hitting you with the baton. What did you say to them?
Well, as they approached me, one of them leveled a semi-automatic weapon at my chest and then lowered it. Another one knocked me back. I was asking them the questions. Why are you violating your oath to the Constitution? And I was standing in the street. I wasn't even standing on federal property. After they knocked me back and I sort of stood there, I stopped talking because I knew what was going to happen. They were going to beat me. So I relaxed so it wouldn't hurt so much. And then they beat me.
Well, you didn't flinch on video, but I imagine the pain must have been intense.
I don't really even remember it hurting then, to be honest.
How about your eyes? Were you able to see? Because I saw you pepper sprayed. Could you breathe?
Yeah, they hit me twice, point blank, right in the face with pepper spray. I lost my vision very shortly after that. As I, left, I, gave them a gesture as I departed. And as I was trying to get to the other end of the park, as far away from the courthouse as I could go, I basically wandered into a giant cloud of tear gas. And that was very disorienting, and I eventually managed to find my way to a corner of the park and sit down on a park bench.
Did anyone come to help you?
Yes. Portland has these courageous folks that come out every night, and they're called street medics. And they're there to help provide immediate first aid to the protesters who are maimed, damaged, or basically gassed every night by the federal authorities. And one of the street medics is named Tav, and they got me out of there. When Tav approached, he asked me, "Okay," and I said, "Well, they beat me with batons and broke my hand and sprayed pepper spray in my face." And then Tav immediately tried to evacuate me to a medic area so she could start treatment, but that was getting overrun by the federal officers.
Well, that beating looked awful to us, but you've said that you have no doubt it would have been a lot worse had you been black. Explain that.
I think so. I don't know if it had been a lot worse if I'd been black. I don't think they care who they're beating up. They're gassing pregnant moms. They're beating up old veterans. I don't think color matters in this circumstance. I think the reason why I didn't get beat worse is because I didn't fall down.
But you were out there in the first place, which I think an important point that you wanted to make is that Black Lives Matter. You've held that dear to your heart. And talk about how you're taking what happened to you here and the ordeal that you endured and how you're using that to further that cause.
Yeah, and I would like the attention to diminish on me, if not completely go away. And I want to reemphasize that this movement is about Black Lives Matter. It's not about a civil war in a small little section of Portland. And I think that's getting lost these days, principally because the media is focusing only on a small little section of Portland and all the conflict that is occurring there. And I think that is happening for a particular political reason, that this type of reaction by the federal officers, I think, is intentional, because they go out and do the same thing every night, and then the protests only grow larger every night.
We have seen that. Now there are thousands and thousands more people as a result of what we've been seeing the past few nights, right? And what happened to you, quite frankly.
Yeah, and so we're forming into coalitions now. So we've got the wall of moms, we've got the wall of dads. I'm trying to establish the wall of vets. And we're all going to go out there and link around that building and basically take whatever the federal officers give us nonviolently.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you do continue to keep going out there despite that broken hand and all. But I got to ask you, you said you wanted to talk to those federal agents about, why you think they're violating their oath to the Constitution. Is part of that oath not protecting the federal property and monuments? As you know, the president said, DHS agents can go out there because they're supposed to be protecting those symbols of our national government, and that is what the protesters have been targeting. Do you not feel like in that sense they are protecting the Constitution as well?
Well, no, not really. I was standing in the street. I was never on federal property, and I never did anything aggressive or provocative. And they still attacked That was unconstitutional, blatantly unconstitutional. I was never on federal property.
Well, for what you've done and what you continue to do, you've been dubbed Captain Portland. I think that's your nickname now. I don't know what you think of that moniker.
I'm
that
not
nickname.
a fan.
Not a fan. All right. Yeah. Nonetheless, it's catchy and it's getting your message out. You do have a friend here in the Bay Area, I should mention to our viewers, a naval reservist, Dr. Huang, who recently served on the Mercy. And he actually started a GoFundMe on your behalf, but it's not really for you. Who is it for? What is it for?
Well, it's not for me at all. No, I'm taking no money, no GoFundMes or anything. My medical care is 100% covered by the VA. What we're raising money for are the street medics. They're getting injured every night. Themselves are getting injured. So we're raising money in order to fund these street medics to pay for their health care when they're hurt, as well as provide supplies for these street medics. They're a vital component of these protests because of the way the federal officers are behaving and injuring people. Those street medics are necessary. We have street medics who volunteer to protect civilians from federal officers.
Well, they were out there for you that night, that's for sure. $15,000 raised so far, hundreds of donations. Captain Portland, whether or not you like the name, I think it sticks. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Take good care. I hope that hand heals fully and soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we should just mention that the Department of Homeland Security has not responded to ABC's request to comment on this specific incident. We're going to take a short break on the air, but the conversation continues on our live streams, including Facebook Live right now. All right, folks, thanks for joining us today. I know it was a bit of a topsy-turvy start. Sometimes we have Zoom linkage issues with our guest. And that happened today, but I'm glad you got to see some of Reggie Aki's interview with the UCSF scientists who also study the use of masks and how it also protects not just people around the wearer, but also the wearer, because if you do come in contact with COVID, the viral load should be less and hence less sick, less affected. And speaking of masks, our next guest is actually the man who I've been saying, mask, 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 wear your mask since day one. Jeremy Howard is with us next. Hey, Jeremy, you there?
I am here. Hi, hi.
Hey, nice to have you. I don't know if you caught some of that interview with Chris David, the Navy veteran who was involved in that incident in Portland. Did you see that?
I missed it. Oh, I mean, I saw the incident, but I didn't know you were interviewing him. That's awesome. That guy's tough.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, so tough. He stood there and seemingly unflinching in the middle of that beating, and now he's talking about it and sharing with us his thoughts on you know, why he felt it was important to not only be there that time but continue to go out there. So yeah, all right, well, thanks for joining us, folks. If you have questions for Jeremy Howard, please feel free to post them. As you know, he is the founder of Masks for All, and there's a big change involving Masks for All that we're going to talk about coming up. Okay, Jeremy, we have 4 minutes for our conversation when we get back on air.
Okay.
All righty. So just hang on tight. Let me regroup. Oh, where's Jeremy's mask? You want to know where Jeremy's mask is? He is in his own home, so he's not currently wearing one, but I'm sure he has a plethora of masks. And folks, we're back. A data scientist who first told us about the study was one of the first in the country, really, to call for universal mask wearing. There's going to be a change, though, involving that group. University of San Francisco's Jeremy Howard, who had been a regular on this show and started the volunteer organization Masks for All, announced his work is done. Or is it really done? Joining us now is Jeremy Howard to explain. Jeremy, look, from day one, I want to say back in February, maybe, we started talking about mask wearing and the difference it can make in containing the pandemic. And here we are. We've progressed a lot. This week, we have the president saying it's patriotic to wear a mask. He's not always seen wearing one, but he does say that, and that's a big step. So I got to ask you, what's happening with Masks for All? Are you really done?
Well, it's not that the work is done, but I feel my work is done. You know, there's only so many months that one can be a volunteer scientist working on a global advocacy campaign. At some point, you've got to get back to your family and get back to your day job. You know, for me, I figured while nobody else seemed to be picking up the slack, somebody had to do it, so it may as well be me. But now that, you know, even the president of the United States and the World Health Organization are saying, wear a mask, I'm not sure I'm so needed anymore.
Gotcha. It started in San Francisco with you, and now it's global, so I get that. You made a lot of progress, but tell me, how much progress, really? Do you know what percentage of the population is now wearing masks, and how many states in the U.S. now have public mandates for mask wearing?
Yeah, so now the vast majority of Americans live in regions that require masks. Another 3 states just today were added. So the majority of states and something like 80% of the population. It's amazing to think back to early March when we started all this, that there were only 10 countries in the world that even recommended masks, let alone required them. So when I started out, it was felt like kind of screaming into the void a little bit. Nobody was talking about masks. Nobody seemed interested in them. And when I first started saying, hey, maybe everybody should wear a mask, there was a lot of kind of patronizing or even passive aggressive responses of like, oh, well, that's nice that you think it would make a difference. But of course, we know that it won't. So the world's come a long way in the last.
This is true. And this week, we've seen a lot of headlines saying that wearing the mask not only protects the other people around you, but can also reduce COVID's impact on you, right?
Right. And, you know, this is something we've talked about on this show. I think we were probably the first show here to actually do a demonstration. You and I both did a demonstration of how you can actually take a cloth mask and make it more tightly fitting and have better filtration. And so it's good that people are starting to now realize, you know, just because you're doing a DIY mask or a non-medical mask, it doesn't mean that you have to throw away protection for yourself. There are lots of great materials and designs now which can provide a very high level of protection to the wearer, not 100%, but well over 50%.
All right, I got a couple questions from viewers for you. Alex Kahuna wants to know, is wearing a bandana or cloth mask effective?
Yeah, it's super effective. The thing is that when the droplets that carry the virus come out of your mouth, as they come out, they're pretty big. They easily penetrate into and then absorb into a cloth mask or a bandana. And so, in fact, in the last couple of months, there's been studies where they've actually tested different types of face covering, and they found that bandanas are amongst the best, actually, at stopping kind of some of the jets from escaping from the sides, from the bottom, from the top, because it's such a good coverage.
All right. We are out of time, but Jeremy, it's always great to get the facts on masks from you. So I know you're, you know, taking a bit of a break, but you will always be welcome on this show anytime to talk masks or anything else scientific. All right. Take good care.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a short break on the air, but the conversation continues on our live streams, including ABC7News.com. And Jeremy, are you still there, or did you hang up already? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Excellent. Let me just get to a couple more questions. Do we have time?
Sure.
20 seconds. Wondering if the mask can leak if you wear them too close to, if you're close to other people, and if that can mislead other people.
Yeah, they can leak. It depends what kind you have. If it doesn't have good kind of fit, then some can escape from the sides. Even a poorly fit, that your respiratory droplets travel by about 3 or 4 times, but a better fit will reduce them to just a few inches.
All right, you did that exactly 20 seconds. See, you are a TV pro. Jeremy Howard, thanks so much. I'll see you later. All right, folks, we're getting ready and set up for our next guest. Our next guest is Jennifer Hatcher, who is a salon owner in Pleasanton, a stylist, okay, in Pleasanton. Who also is very eager, along with other stylists, to be able to start performing their services again, and get her reaction to Governor Newsom's announcement that they'll have to do it outdoors. My producer is going to check in with me and give me a couple more details, so hang on. All right, that sounds good. And we're back. Earlier this week, Governor Gavin Newsom announced salons can operate outdoors. But not everyone is happy with that, especially some salons in Alameda County. So joining me to talk about a rally in the East Bay today and what happens now is a stylist from Maven and Company Salon, Jennifer Hatcher. Jennifer, thanks for making the time for us.
Thank you so much for having me, Kristen.
So you were out there at that protest today. You're not happy with the decision to, by the governor. Tell me about that.
So I will say this. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the fact that our industry alone was singled out and attention was put towards helping us kind of restart going back to work. But I just feel like it was an uneducated decision. And that was the whole point. We weren't there to protest. We weren't there to stomp our feet. We were there to educate people who can really help us make a difference and to really advocate for how sanitary and how clean our operations within our walls really are.
All right, so you're making this big push to be able to operate indoors. I imagine that's because you can do a lot more of the services indoors, right, and higher volume?
Correct. So with the new regulations, there's only certain services that can be done outside. And from my perspective as a full service stylist I focus mostly, 85% of my clientele comes to me for color services. So being able to move my business outside into a dry cut only operation, financially it's not substantial for me. There's not enough hours in the day. There's not enough clients in my county to even begin to make that work. And then there's a whole other issue of getting the permitting and getting the licensing to be able to work, because our salon's upstairs. We don't have access to that kind of space.
So are you saying it's not realistic for you? Have you even started to inquire about maybe being able to take over a sidewalk or something like that? The permitting process, have you started?
So Alameda County isn't even to the point yet where we can start looking into that. We're not even close. And we've actually been closed since March 16th. Cocoa County's been able to go back. Other counties around us have, but we have not been able to work behind the chair for quite a lot of days.
And had you spent money to make improvements inside your salon to be able to operate in a way that you consider safe?
Absolutely. As soon as the regulations were released for other counties to start opening, our owner, Lindsay Skog, who is an angel in a dream, hit the ground running. And we have sanitation stations throughout the salon. We have blue light sanitation, little cases, not only for our belongings, but for our guests to be able to use. All of the magazines, all the amenities have all been removed as dictated by the new regulations. We've been ready to go for almost 4 months now. And so all this money and all this time has been put into getting ready to go. And there's just no date in sight.
Do you see your clients going to other counties, such as, for example, San Mateo County, where they can still operate fully indoors?
I did have some clients come to me and say, do you have any recommendations for anyone in Contra Costa County? Do you have any recommendations for anyone anywhere else? And to be honest, I don't blame them. I mean, some of my clients who were booked for the week following when I would have seen them haven't had their hair touched since January. And these are professional women who are still attending Zoom calls for their profession, they're still active in their life, and they're hurting too.
All right, Jennifer Hatcher, thank you so much. Best luck to you. Best of luck.
Thanks so much.
We'll take a short break on the air and be right back. All right. Jennifer, are you still there? You still there? Jen, if you're still there, I can chat for a couple more minutes on Facebook here with our viewers. So basically, how many people were out there with you today?
I would say probably 25, and a majority of them were from the salon that I work at, from Maven & Co. It kind of originated with myself and Lindsay, our owner, and Marissa Cabrera, who also works with us. The three of us kind of spearheaded just a way to be a part of a solution and to kind of continue the conversation instead of sitting on our hands and just not knowing what else to do.
Right. Well, how about nail salons? Do you know if some plan to join you in your advocacy efforts?
So the only new regulations that I've seen are for hair salons, but it's been pretty explicit that chemical services are not to be performed outside.
Correct.
So I'm not sure what their kind of limitations are going to be, but our safety precautions with the new regulations were about heat stroke and moving inside if there was lightning. I mean, it did not make it feel like a safe, feasible option, even if it was an option for us.
I got to ask you, do you have stylists who are just picking up and leaving, either going into other professions or just leaving the Bay Area?
Absolutely. There are salons that are closing. There are stylists who have to walk away from this field. There are stylists who have to put food on their table for their kids. I'm a single mom. I'm doing everything I can so that I can advocate, so that I can get back to work. But we can't advocate forever. Advocate does not, pay our bills.
Well, we'll see what happens. I know you actually, I was told you got a sitter for your child to be able to do this interview with us, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I know that's an expense and a challenge, but I appreciate you coming out to make your point. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Absolutely. I appreciate the platform to do it.
By the way, did you do your own hair? It looks excellent.
Oh, you bet I did. Every 4 weeks on the dot.
Excellent. All right, take good care.
Thanks.
And we're back. Thanks so much for joining us today for this interactive show, Getting Answers. Hope you enjoy the conversation with Chris David, the Navy veteran in Portland. Take good care. Bye-bye. All right, thanks, Facebook friends. We know we had a rocky start, but we ended strong, and you were great as always. Keep those great questions coming. Take care.